So we're gonna call this special land use commission meeting to order Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. It is now 7:00 PM. So start off with planning and zoning commission, updates on planning and zoning, commission decisions. We actually haven't had a lot of stuff lately. We just finished the thing on Marywood Lane, and a lot of the stuff that's coming before us is farm related uses. So there's a couple of people coming in tomorrow to discuss our farm regulations. People are looking, they have smaller properties that still want to do farming related activities on there. And our zoning regulations at the moment limited farms to 5 acres. So be some good discussion tomorrow about that. And that's, like I said, not a whole lot. Elections are coming up and all that good stuff. Update on the POCD. We had our presentation. We had a really good turnout. It was about 50 people came. Thank you guys, everybody who showed up too. There's some good questions. I think it went well. Next up is to actually get the draft version of the POCD ready and hold another town meeting. So that's all I have for planning and zoning. Any questions or? All right, if not, conservation inland wetlands. It looks like there's a couple of you guys here, so you can shoot who wants to go.
Sure, I can go, Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had a ton of decisions since we last spoke. I guess I'll start off with our current agenda. We have one pending application that was submitted last month. This is the proposed house on Sylvan Terrace, where there is a stormwater easement on the property and also some wetlands. Sort of the interesting thing about it, though, is they do have sewer connection, but they don't have water connection, if I have that right. So there won't be need for any septic, and they're actually proposing to be out of the wetlands completely and not build within the storm water easement. And I know that was sort of confusing as they first approached us as to what they wanted to do, but they've been clear about that. Just to clarify what is being proposed, and of course needs to be deliberated by the commission tomorrow night. Secondly, Incarnation Camp wants to demo a building and rebuild the building along the side of the pond. I think it's more toward the northern side or eastern side of the pond, up at the north end, not in the camp proper. It's closer to that Pioneer Village condo area that they have up there. So we'll be hearing about that for the first time tomorrow night. And then we'll also have a preliminary wetland assessment form submitted for Scott Papusha for 245 Kelsey Hill Road, the property across from the high school there. He's shared a preliminary plan to develop that property into a tree farm with a large building that would be used for log processing and potentially to dig a pond too. So fairly potentially complicated proposal there. So again, just hearing about that for the first time through a preliminary wetland statement, and they'll have the opportunity to provide us more details tomorrow night. We got some feedback from town attorney Jane Marsh on the conservation easement that we were proposing, both P&Z and conservation inland wetlands, in conversations with the Deep River Land Trust early on in the purchase of the Rattling Valley property. I think we all sort of thought it would be sort of standard procedure to issue a conservation easement to the land trust and have the town continue to hold the title for that property. It turns out that town attorney Jane does not really like that idea. She thinks it puts too much burden on the town. So sort of agree to disagree on that one from my perspective, but nonetheless, propose an alternative from Karen Perry, our wetlands counsel, to revise the town ordinance, which provides conservation and inland wetlands with jurisdiction over Canfield Woods. So officially proposed idea, and we do have some draft language that we can share at some point. But proposed to more simply say, revise that ordinance so that it includes all of the current parcels that we consider part of Canfield Woods. Currently, there's sort of a blanket statement that says, Canfield Woods is a natural conservation property under the care of Conservation and Inland Wetlands, but there isn't a lot of detail about which lots are included in Canfield Woods. So it gives us an opportunity to potentially list out explicitly all of the parcels that are included in Canfield Woods, and include this new parcel with a statement, of course, that the purpose and the existence of this ownership is for conservation and natural resources and land conservation. So that's a potential alternative. I'd be happy to hear any feedback on that. And then lastly, we do have a draft version, final draft version of our inland wetlands revised regulations with a proposed fee schedule too. So we're putting that all into one final document, and we'll have it tomorrow night. And we will begin the process of sharing that with DEP for final approval, since it is the town regulations version essentially of state law, that we can make our own. They do have to provide final sign off on that. And then we're also gonna share the proposed updated fee schedule with the Board of Selectmen too, so they're aware and can potentially provide feedback on that too, if they're interested in doing so. So I don't know, John, if there's anything you want to add, feel free to.
No, I think that covered it. I have some more stuff to add for when we get to the land trust, so I'll talk then.
Sure.
Tanner, I do have a question for you. So instead of doing an easement, language wise, you're just going to revise the ordinance for that? That kind of helps, because then they get the land trust gets basically an easement over the entire Canfield Woods instead of just that little parcel. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Well, not necessarily. So I'm not sure exactly what the term would be, but the land trust wouldn't have any sort of deeded interest. They wouldn't have any land records that claim, any sort of ownership, or they wouldn't legally hold a restriction of development. But the idea is that, if it's written in town ordinance and spelled out that way, that it's protected. It wouldn't, you're right that it would not be as, well, it would not be as strong as a conservation restriction, a legal conservation easement. But, it's in town ordinance. That's fairly strong.
I can
Basically like stewards for the property, basically.
Well, it will list the properties as officially protected for conservation purposes, and it puts the Conservation and Inland Wetlands in charge of stewardship of that parcel. We're currently sort of, quote unquote, in charge.
Yeah.
Of course it's somewhat figurative, but another department, say in town, couldn't decide that they wanted to put in a public works facility on Canfield's Woods without the approval of Conservation and Inland Wetlands. And so it's certainly a step below a conservation easement in terms of how the land is protected, but given the pushback from a legal perspective, which putting the town's kind of legal landmines, looking out for potential legal landmines, 10, 20 years down the road, I could see that from the legal perspective. This is a different path that we think, and potentially the land trust agrees, that it's sufficient in protecting that property.
Yeah, I can jump in for that too. Obviously, like I kind of like agree to disagree with Jane as well. I think there are examples of towns and land trusts working together where land trusts hold conservation easements. So I kind of, in initial conversations, I thought that was kind of a really good route to take because it just offers more conservation protection. That said, provided the land itself is kind of protected in perpetuity as open space, i.e., you're not building a baseball field or other things like that. I think the land trust would be okay with it. I think we just need to all see the final language and what that all looks like.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Any more questions for conservation in the wetlands? If not, on to EDC. Again, just a couple of you here. Just want to shoot what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, I'll start on that. So our Connecticut Main Street assessment is complete, and we're looking at a January date to discuss that report with the rep. And they've said that they've established a good baseline, that there's a lot to be accomplished, but we're off to a good start. Also in January, we are scheduled for our EDC training along with other towns in Chester that is being put on by former members of the Connecticut Economic Resource Center. And they will also be giving us regional data that's important for us to know when making recommendations. And I attended the Economic Steering Committee meeting at the Middlesex Chamber, where all the different EDCs from the different towns in the region go and discuss similar problems they have with the towns and how they're all handling it. Besides Connecticut Main Street, we're looking at joining the Connecticut Economic Development Association because they have professional development with education and training as well as Connecticut Main Street Center, and networking to, enhance our knowledge and skills in order to make recommendations on economic development matters. Frank can speak up to this, but we're also following up on discussions regarding possible movement with Mount St. John and Bridge Street, and ongoing discussions with P&Z regarding affordable housing.
All right, I'm taking notes too. I gotta do the minutes, so. All right, and then if anybody has any questions for economic development? If not,
Want me to comment on Mount St. John's at all?
Sure.
The bottom line is that there's a somewhat promising proposal for a high-end boutique type hotel on that site. A group of businessmen in New York have made an offer to the church corporation. The next step is to run that offer through the bankruptcy proceedings, which is the last I've heard. So we're hoping that comes through. The general thought is that would be a positive development for the town, but we don't have any more information at this point.
I actually have something when it's my turn for land trust that's kind of related, sort of related to that. So when everyone's ready for land trust, let me know.
Okay. Any questions for EDC? If not, on to land trust.
Yeah, so don't have too much going on. One main thing though is that, and it kind of pertains a little bit to St. John's, is the property just to the south of St. John's. We actually received a substantial donation in the will from the Tate family. So we are in the process of formalizing everything, but we're going to be acquiring just under 30 acres, which is great. It's for open space. We are currently sort of investigating the access to the property. We do have one access that doesn't require that main road that goes into St. John's, but it's a little hairy getting up it. It's all ledge essentially. So we're kind of investigating the possibility of trying to find if we would be able to gain access through the St. John's Drive to get to our property. There was an easement given by the former property owners and another adjacent property owner as well to St. John's themselves to have sole access to it. So it does pass through our property, or what will be our property. So we're looking into, you know, any potential partnership to maybe work with that. So maybe the new owners would be amenable to that. In the past, there was former people interested in the property, and they were possibly going to work with us on some conservation of some open space that would also be adjacent. It's the south, I believe it's like the southwest portion of St. John's is wooded. It's adjacent to our Tate property. So I don't know, you know, I think we would probably love to reach out to the new owners if that would be something they would be interested in, but obviously nothing solid on that.
Awesome.
From what I know about the noises they have been making, I think they'd be receptive to that.
Great. Yeah, I know our land trust president and we reached out to the select woman just to kind of have a meeting with her, just to kind of talk about some of those ideas, because if there's room for more conservation in there and then also access along that road, that would be great. So definitely, we would definitely be interested in gaining an audience with the new owners when the time is right.
Do you know what's with the Tate property, what's going on with that apart from the bequest, I guess, that they made to the land trust?
So the house itself, yeah, if you want to pull it up, the way the deed is worded right now is the housed lot. They would like, per the deed, to kind of shrink the house lot to as small as current planning and zoning rules permit. And then basically the remainder of what you're on lot 2, also lot 8, 5, and I think 5A as well. I'm not sure if 5A was part of, nope, not so 8, 5, 2, and then there's also a little chunk on the river, which is mostly under the water. Yeah, that little lot 3 up top there on the map.
Sorry, that one.
Yes, yeah. I think most of it's scoured away, so it's kind of underwater for the most part. But
there's a pretty good setup over there. I've walked down there when Howard Tree was clearing for the railroad tracks. So there's a decent little spot over there.
Okay,
It's nice to walk to.
Check it out. So yeah, so it's a substantial property for us. So we're really excited. It kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't, you know, the deed initially, or the will had said to first dibs was the Nature Conservancy, who, you know, they're not really as interested in attaining kind of parcels of this size. So we were listed as the second, the second contenders, I guess. So we accepted, and we're just waiting for all the paperwork to go through.
Nice.
So
John,
once it's reduced to the house lot, well, they're just going to put the house on the market and sell it?
That I'm not sure. I don't know if any family members would retain it. That I don't know.
Okay.
John, if you need help, like for survey work and splitting the lot and mapping, let me know. I'd love to help.
That would be great.
That's a great piece.
Yeah, no, I did a site walk a couple weeks ago. It's nice. They have some nice views of the river as well, which it'll be a nice piece of property.
That's fantastic.
We're excited. Yeah, and actually, since we have the map up, the one area in the past that we were interested in, if you do look at where St. John's is, it's kind of like the adjacent parcel above lot 8, kind of in that back corner there. There's you know, it's all woodland. So, you know, if that would be something the new owners would be amenable to, we'd love to work with them.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great setup.
Yep. Yeah, we're excited about it.
I'm pretty excited myself. Just found out about it.
Nice.
All right. Any questions for Land Trust?
We have our holiday party is going to be next week at High 9 on the 18th at 5 o'clock. All of you are welcome to attend if you would like.
Thank you. All right. Design review. I didn't see anybody actually from design review, I don't think. Give me one sec. Yeah, nobody on design review. So old business. Anything for old business? Right. If not, on to new business. So, a little while back, Carol had asked, that we look at, affordable housing options for the town. And it's come up a bunch in planning and zoning, and the consensus was to take a look at some of the properties that are available in town. Well, the problem is there's no properties available in town, so we'd take a look at some of what we thought would be a good spot for affordable housing, pass it on to an engineer, see what they thought, and if they could do an assessment of the properties we picked out. So since you guys are all here, I'm going to pick on all of you to go through some of these. So real quick, get my bearings here. Here's Essex Street. So we start at the far end of the town. We should probably put on the sewer and water. And this thing is not one. So one of the quick thoughts was, this property here, which is it's across the railroad tracks. It's, it's a larger piece of property. It's got sewer, water, gas. One of the tougher issues with this is, and I don't want to get into the great train debate that we always have, it's always been access across the railroad tracks. So a lot of the people who work with the train are adamant that you cannot cross these railroad tracks in any way, shape, or form. I don't think they actually have a real say in that. I think it's the state who would decide that. And there's an existing crossing already. How we could use that as a shared access is another issue. You could also come through Essex off of the Towns Road. This parcel does run through Essex a little bit. So the thought was this is a possibility, being a larger piece. Trying to think what else is over here.
What's that like? That's like what, 60 acres, Tony? 30 acres, something like that.
That is. This computer does not want to move today. Give me one sec. Where's the acreage on this thing?
A little further down.
I think it's 55.
Yeah.
50.74.
That property changed hands maybe I don't know, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. We had someone come to Wetlands and, well, I don't know, a little bit out of place, but they were kind of querying us on whether or not it could be developed into a disc golf course. So we had a kind of a brief, goofy conversation about that, and we never heard from him again. But I think access is challenging because I don't think there's an existing right of way through the lot 3 there, which would have to be negotiated. And I think that I just recall offhand conversations about that property that previous owners tried and failed to gain access.
Yeah. So, right. So that's, that was always the big go-to, was that's the big piece, but the access, there's, how do you get in there? So thoughts, because again, the town has to spend money to do a lot of this. You guys think this is a viable piece? We've talked about the access. Tanner just mentioned that they've tried to get access and weren't able to. So maybe this isn't even though it's a larger piece, maybe it's not one of the properties.
What are some of the other ones look like?
Check mark next to that, so I can go back to that. Let's see, as we cruise down the road here. Wait for this to regenerate. Let's see here. That's Lord's Lane. So there's a couple of pieces here. Normally this pops up with a name, but it doesn't want to do it today. I think this, was this Lana Wetzel property, which is a larger piece. But again,
selecting properties that none of the owners have been kind of privy to this yet, right?
no, and this is just, because it's a larger piece, because it's on sewer, because it's on water, it makes an easy option. But again, there's not a single one of these pieces is for sale. We'll have 2 on here that are actually for sale. So again, that's a parcel, and I'll cruise through this a little quicker. One of the thoughts that has come up once before is, so this is Devitt's Field. And the parcel next to it that goes behind it and into the woods is the Historical Society. This piece is owned by the state, and this whole, the whole entire regional, the Valley Railroad is owned by the state. So the thought was to do a land swap, give Devitt's Field to the Historical Society. The Historical Society gives the back piece with access off of, I can't remember the name of the road, get the piece from the state because the state would be willing to give property away for affordable housing. It's happened in a bunch of other towns, and maybe trim off this piece that's not used by the railroad because it's just wooded. That actually butts up to 2 sets of condominiums, and it would be kind of tucked in the back there. And again, it's got available sewer, and we could just could always extend the water line.
With the land swap,
Yep.
would the intent be to still maintain Devitt's Field as like a recreational area?
It would, and so the reason that came up, and that might be a very good option, is that so the Historical Society doesn't have a lot of, they don't have a lot of income for this stuff. So what they could do is lease it back to the town. So that gets them a little bit of money. We get affordable housing, and they maintain the correct size property. Because Marion's going to jump in for this, because there was something with the states, whatever, who said you cannot sell the property. But at one point, there was a discussion about there was a possibility of swapping property. Go ahead, Marion.
It's just really difficult because
Yes.
the Attorney General
Yes.
actually came down and told the Historical Society that they could not sell the property.
Yep.
It's
Have some tongues.
pardon?
That's Tanner's talking about. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just heard a little background and I couldn't tell. So it just may be more difficult
Yeah.
than it would be, than you would think on the surface. Basically, it goes down to the will from Ada, how the will was written, that you can't transfer. So it just may not be very easy to do.
Yeah, so that's, again, as we go through these, there's always going to be these, there's always an issue at hand. So,
I do like that, sorry about that mumble, but I do like that idea. In terms of a site, it's sort of centrally located, it's near stuff, it's near existing amenities, recreation. I think the state would be willing to give you both of those triangular pieces. And yeah, if you could find a way to get that back lot from the Historical Society, that would be great. I'd prefer not to have Devitt Field swapped. I mean, maybe you could swap something else with the Historical Society. Maybe they need another roof, and we could swap another roof for the back lot there. But I do like the idea of the town retaining control of its recreational facility. But yeah, I'm sure there's other, challenges and things to think about there, but that would be my one comment. I think it's a great spot, but I'd prefer the town retain control of it.
Yeah.
that would be ideal, but would that again, with the state saying you can't get rid of the property, that was maybe the available option. Sorry, John, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, I think of the two we've looked at so far, this one definitely, for me, I know it poses some difficulty, but in regard to the location, it seems like an excellent spot for this. Wouldn't be opposed to the Devitt's Field swap, provided there's just language, if it is something they're leasing back to the town. I know, agreements could change in the future, but obviously we don't want to lose Devitt's Field. So if we can kind of figure out a way to make all parties happy, that would be great if this were to become a potential spot.
Okay, well, we'll keep that one on the list. Again, I'm just gonna go randomly pick people's houses. So the one that has come up, actually, there's been talk about affordable housing at the site, but they've, kind of mentioned it, but actually haven't come forward with it is it 411 Main Street? 214 Main Street, which is across the street from the Delos. So that, again, that has its issues too. It's, there's a low-lying spot there, there's drainage issues there, and it's not a huge piece of property. It's only, let's just call it 1.2 acres. So you're not going to get a whole lot of housing on that. So we're not going to meet our quota in that way. The parcel that's next to it isn't owned by them, and the larger piece in the back, from my talks with him, he's not going anywhere. So he just wants to get his pool and move on. So again, not ideal. Not sure what you guys' feeling on that is, but that's another one on the list.
That house is currently unoccupied, right? So
Yeah, it's
looks like
gutted
they,
inside it.
yeah, looks like they gutted it. Definitely get on the southern corner there. You definitely get some water pooling up. So maybe some sort of water feature could be used to improve that a bit. But yeah, centrally located, and it certainly supports the village concept of locating this sort of stuff.
All right, we got so we cruise on down. So I didn't actually have this on my list, but because I have kind of heard what's going on. So there is talk about regionalizing the elementary school, and if the elementary school does get regionalized, that's a pretty decent sized property for the town to hold on to. I mean, affordable housing could go here. There's also talks about, do you move the town hall there because they're out of space? It also, you can get you can get state grants if you move the firehouse and the police department and emergency services all on site. There's quite a lot of grants for that, but it's still a humongous building. And so does affordable housing go there? I think that property actually deserves its own study outside of this. But again, it's an option. Does affordable housing go there?
Yeah, I would say with this one, and this is me, obviously I'm a teacher in district, so I'm not necessarily privy to any info, but like regionalization, I don't think is I'm not saying it's impossible, but that wouldn't be something in the immediate future. I've been at a few regionalization meetings in the past, and there's always been resistance from really all the towns, but I would be surprised if it happened in the near future.
Right. So I had to mention it. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I cruised right by.
I think, Tony, whether or not regionalization is a good idea, I don't know. I'm sure we all have thoughts on that, but if it did happen and that was no longer used as an elementary school, then yeah, I think I do think that's a great idea. I mean, it's such a large, it's almost like Mount St. John, where the inside's been set up that you can't really retrofit it for anything normal. So you kind of have to gut it, and might as well gut it for housing. If it's a 2-3 story building, you're not sprawling out in in natural space. You're putting people right downtown. So yeah, I keep that one in mind, and independent study is not a bad idea. Maybe you could lump that thought into the Main Street plan you got going with the ARPA funds. Yeah, just sort of regardless of the topic of regionalization, if that school were ever abandoned, I do think that's a good spot.
So somebody actually mentioned this the other day, and so I wrote it down just because it got mentioned. So George Atwood owns it's kind of a derelict house at the moment, next door to his auto body shop, and that's just sitting vacant. I mean, it's not a huge piece of property, but it is close to downtown. It's on sewer and water as usual. You could get a few houses in there. So
is 32 a vacant lot, or is there a house on that?
32 is also a vacant lot. It's separate owner, but again, the two parcels together, so that may be the something worth looking at.
Yeah, that is a possibility as well. Do you think with those two lots, is that big enough for the scope of the houses that need to be built?
Well, so if you, there's two approaches you can do, and if you do 2% of what you're needed, you can get yourself a moratorium for, I think it was for 3 years or 4 years, while you work towards the main goal of having the 10%.
Hmm.
Or 20%, or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm ill prepared for that question. Normally I have all that stuff in front of me.
That's okay.
So the next one, and we actually have somebody who's come in for this. Give me a second, Village. No, I'm on the wrong road. So Smith and Wesson actually is for sale. It was one of the few properties I was that actually is for sale. Bridge Street, wrong one. So, and there's actually someone looking to purchase this property and do affordable housing. So I actually met with him. He's going to get back to us after the holidays. He wanted to do a little bit more research. Part of the issue with this is some of the building isn't usable for housing. So if I'm going to throw the arrow on for a second. So the lower part on the, as you're looking at the screen, on the left-hand side, this whole edge of the building is pretty much underground. So there's no windows, which means you can't have housing in that portion. So that's kind of the holdup that he's running into at the moment. The main building, the front part can all be housing. This whole side can be housing, but this part here is kind of like dead space. So, we kind of play back and forth with maybe that can be storage units. So that's the part that he's sitting on, digesting. So anyway, I think that's a valid option, but again, your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. Like, so what, like for that piece that's underground, like, and you might not know the answer to this, but like, what can it be used for? Other, like, obviously I know you said storage, but can it be other commercial, like,
Yep.
Like, so, I mean, that'd be neat to have, if we're gonna have affordable housing in and it's a large enough area, I'd love to see like a mixed use, whether that be something like storage or restaurants, or something for the town, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Perhaps this property could fit that bill.
Yeah, that one. So some of the stuff he was looking at was, what does the town need, for uses and that kind of stuff. So, but commercial was mentioned. So we're kind of just waiting on him to see if he's really going to come through on this or not. Let's see what else I got here.
Yeah, I mean, just chime in and say, yeah, that's a great spot. I mean, retrofitting these industrial buildings proven to be
Right.
successful at these other factories. So
Yeah, and it's an adaptive reuse of a building, so you're not building something new. You're not, eating up a bunch of empty open space, which is kind of what we're going to look at next. So at the intersection of Spring and Union Street, and it actually comes up to Bolcom Road, is a pretty big piece of property. And again, sewer water available here. And it is Pitlick is the owner. So he actually built a house. I think it's the newer house on the corner of Bolcom Road. And so he owns this big property behind it. And so the thought is, maybe he'd be willing to do affordable housing there.
Could you put on the land trust filter? I know we have the one of our properties is over here.
Let's see. That's the data.
At least under open space. Yeah. You just passed it. Move down.
Coastal boundaries critical. Sorry, there's a glare on the screen from this side. Working with the big monitor here. Come on, regenerate.
Oh, that's a state one. There's a separate one. It's not in state data. It's in the town section.
That's what I said. They updated the is that the one? Come on.
Open where is it?
Open space map. There we go.
Yeah.
Updates are always helpful. Is it because
That was it.
okay. I didn't see anything pop up, so
when you open it, there's a tab to click. It says Deep River Land Trust.
Gotcha. Let me flip back the base map. That might help see everybody see everything a little different. Local.
A little bit of an elevation gain as you come off the road there. I think we had a dispute between some drainage along that access way there with some water moving and some dirt moving years back. But just recall that it's a little bit of an elevation gain, quite a bit coming up off a road up into the meat of the property.
Gotcha. So like this area or the on the Bolton Road side?
Yeah, that area that you just pointed to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that area might be easier. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a larger parcel, but again, I mean it's in the village district, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I mean this is if we're gonna kind of do the thing where we say, you know, in the spirit of the POCD, you know, we're gonna balance, you know, we need to develop some places, some in appropriate places. So I think this fits that model, that
Okay.
mode.
Keep that on the list. So I keep passing by these. So the other one is Deep River Market. So then the reason I bring this up is because somebody has actually asked about it, and then it kind of fell through. Cloverdale, where are we?
4 acres,
That-
5 acres.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent spot. There is, I mean, it doesn't show on this, but Tanner knows that a big back chunk of this is wet. Acreage. Did I pass it? How about this? It is. Uh, 2.2 acres. I thought it was a bigger piece than that, but I guess not. So, again, sewer and water available. You know, it's on the sidewalk, so it's kind of walkable. It's a little far from town, but it's an option.
Yeah, I mean you could probably fit something. I don't know, some sort of, you know, I don't know the right term for the structures, but some sort of, you know, connected multifamily 2-story thing right alongside the road there in the existing footprint of all the space that's been cleared and flattened and even stay out of the wetlands.
Yeah. All right, and then the only other option that everybody's mentioned at the last meeting was, and I'm gonna struggle to find it. There it is the Region 4 property that is, I don't know, the most controversial thing I think I've ever heard in this town. It was bought and they shouldn't have bought it, and on and on and on. And the only reason this comes up is because the plan is to extend the sewer line up Scenic View Drive and Hemlock and everything in through the condos, which gets it to abut up to this property. So I don't think that's the best use for that. But again, it was brought up, so I have to ask you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have mixed feelings only because we have the land trust property right over there. And you know, I know the school owns it. It would be great to kind of expand upon what's there already as open space. In regard to its location for housing, obviously, yeah, it's tied in with the village and everything else, but that also depends on if sewers get up there as well, right?
Right, and so that's, yeah. Do you spend the money studying this when the region might not sell it to you, the sewers might not go in, so that one's another one that's not, if it does happen, it's a long way out. But it did get mentioned, and I did forget one. Let's see, Elm Street at the bridge.
I'd just say I don't think that one's the best option either. And then I know there's a trail system through the woods there that the school uses sort of as an outdoor classroom, and it's nice for schools to have some open space attached to them for that purpose.
We were actually, the land trust was working with the district. It kind of was on hiatus with, the middle school moving up there with the mold and all that stuff. But we were kind of talking to them about sharing a portion of our property, because I know they wanted to work on designing a cross-country trail through there, which would be nice because it kind of maintains more of that open space and as opposed to making parking lots or other buildings and things like that. But it does serve a use not only for the school and the kids, but also anyone who would really want to use that trail. So the land trust was amenable to working with them to allow part of that trail to kind of go onto our property, provided, it meets our standards in regard to, protecting the natural area that we own.
Nice. Yeah, all right, so the last one, I told you the last one was the last one, but this one is the actual last one. So just before you cross the bridge, as you're heading up to Route 9, the old exit 5, there's the old convalescent home that sits on the hill there. So that property is owned by, of course, they don't have a picture of it, but this parcel and the parcel behind it are actually owned by the same owner. And they're kind of stuck with the building. It has fallen into disrepair. I don't know. When I looked at it when it was for sale, and there was some parts of the roof that have collapsed, but it is a concrete building. So again, maybe an option. Again, it's one of the things where you get to reuse a building, but access is kind of tough on this one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but when you drive by, you kind of see you have to drive up a pretty steep hill to get into the parking area, which is on the side. So don't know. Your thoughts on this one?
That one is also right, it seems like it's underneath electrical lines. So I'm not sure how attractive it would be.
Right.
But obviously, yeah, it's a vacant building.
Yeah.
I'm looking at an aerial. Looks like there's a big tarp over the top of it.
With some of the smaller properties, it might be nice almost to do, and I don't know if cluster is the right term, but if you could figure out a way of doing a cluster versus just a monolithic type of housing.
Yeah, maybe like 4 small townhouses or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Or even duplexes. I don't think we allow duplexes, but that might be also a type of option for just different. I mean, everybody's mentioning kind of 1-bedroom type affordable housing, but affordable housing for families might, you maybe do a cluster of 3-bedroom houses, 4 3-bedroom houses, or something where you're on a smaller area.
That's all. It's just there's one I was thinking of that I bring up often because I think it turned out really well. Where are we here? That's the triangle. So we're off this. It's a Osprey. See if we can drop the little guy in there. So this is Tidewater Village, and they're just little houses, almost like in Florida, that are built, you don't have a humongous yard, but you have, one floor living. They're individually owned. Whoops, it just buzzed right by them. And they're 2 bedrooms. So, and again, this is like a, cluster style development. And again, smaller yards, smaller houses, and easy living. So I agree with you. Not everything has to be, a monstrosity of a building to be affordable housing. Something like this could work.
I think another good example.
Sorry, you can go ahead, Dan.
Oh yeah, another good example, Tony, is when you're going over the East Haddam Swing Bridge, and you pass the little ice cream shop there, and you look to your right. I think that that's to me was what I was picturing as Mary Ann was describing as sort of like, and those really fit the kind of the New England character too, real nicely.
Yeah, those look great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's a good choice. You're talking about these guys right here.
Yeah,
I think they were either a part of the theater,
yeah, those, yeah.
affordable housing, or maybe
I think it is part of the theater. I think they used it to like house, different artists and stuff that were
Yeah.
working there or whatever. I don't know.
No, that's it. Good call, Tanner. This is actually a really good example too. Every time I drive by, I think, man, that was really done well. So yeah. But yeah, so it doesn't always have to be a building. It can be something like this.
And that would be, I like this style too, in regard to like just the aesthetic of it all too. I think it would fit very nicely in our town rather than like an uber modern building. But
Yeah.
I'd imagine there'd be like a combination of, if you had a smaller lot doing something like this, and then if we're fortunate enough to get one like the Smith and Wesson, then yeah, that's a big spot. We can like put more of those 1 bedroom types of things in there, and just kind of have a variety of offerings.
Okay. All right. If you guys think of anything after this, feel free to email me. But I think we got a decent list together. And I'm really glad that I was able to write this down because I always think of the East Haddam one. I can never remember it. So, but I will get this in some format and you guys will see it again.
I would just one more comment. I think Tanner kind of touched upon it before. What I like about most of the lots that you've shown, it definitely keeps in line with like the spirit of the POCD, with like kind of looking at the village area and trying to expand upon that. So that's great.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a walkable little area, so why not, keep it in the villagey part of town?
Yep.
It seems to work there the best. So
Then it brings people into the town too. So,
Yeah.
Shopping, going out to eat, and that's good for Main Street.
right. Okay. If you guys have nothing else, we can adjourn this meeting. All right. Fantastic, guys. You all have a good night, and I'll see a bunch of you guys tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
goodbye.
See you.